Hello, everybody, and welcome to Movie.Cast, a podcast where we talk about everything films. We are avid moviegoers, just like you, so we want to spread our opinions and occasionally hear from you, So welcome to the show. My name is Mike Woodard. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Costa Vianis and Amber Fisher.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Good?
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Awesome. So we all saw the Avengers a little while ago. So that's going to be our first topic of discussion today is Marvel's next $1 billion. I mean Avengers Age of Ultron. So to explain real quick, we're going to do quick instant reactions to the movies that are spoiler free for those of you who maybe haven't seen it yet. So we'll just do a round table, like we'll start with Amber, go to Costa, and then me. And then after that, you're going to hear this sound. And thanks to Mr. Wilhelm, that's when you'll know that we have a spoiler alert. For those of you who might be listening on the audio version as opposed to the video, that's what you'll hear. So let's kick it off, shall we? Amber, why don't you take it away?
Me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did I just prompt you?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, like I just laid it out here, right there for you.
I know.
So let's start with you. Try to keep it to about 30 seconds.
That's
explain.
really hard, but all right.
It's okay, but explain what you thought of Avengers, and should the people who are watching or listening go see it, go.
I liked it, but I didn't love it. I prefer to see Avengers 1, the first Avengers, more than this one. I agree. I liked a lot of aspects of it, but there was other stuff that I didn't like, which compared to Avengers, I just liked the Avengers, where this one I had problems with.
Okay.
With gaps and things in there that shouldn't have been in there at all.
Story issues.
Yeah, story issues. There was more story issues. I saw it once in the theater, so I'm good. Like, I don't want to really see it again. Probably maybe rewatch it when it comes out on DVD.
What would you recommend to somebody if you were saying, like, if you were telling somebody about this movie? Would you tell them to go see it in the theater?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a fun movie to see. I know I've heard a lot of other people, some people really love it, which and thinks it's better than the first one, where to me, I like the action stuff might be better than the first one, but I see the problems with it where they don't see the problems with it, or they liked the stuff that I found that was an issue. So I still think it's a good Marvel movie. Okay. I mean, if I had to choose, I still think Captain America 2 is better than this movie.
Fair enough.
If that makes sense, and that's one of my favorites.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We let you go on for way more
I
than 30
know.
seconds.
Well, you were asking me questions,
You know what? That's
so
okay.
it's okay.
This is our trial run at this, so that's okay. Costa, go ahead. I'm going to see if I can be Let's see how concise you can be. All right. Okay. Ready and go.
All right. Well, I kind of have to echo Amber's sentiments here. Good, but not great. Okay. I also preferred the first Avengers. Yeah. But I think it's also because that was the first time we saw everyone together. I will say I liked Ultron as a primary antagonist compared to Loki.
Yes. I agree.
But just like Amber said, story issues, it was unbalanced in some areas, and there were a number of gaps. But at the end of the day, because it's a part of Marvel, and also another thing, it introduces you to some otherwise, it starts making connections to future movies a little bit, but introduces you to the heroes that we'll talk about later that we aren't familiar with in the Marvel universe. So, but because of that, I would say see it. It's entertaining, but I'm not sure you'll come away liking it as much as the first one.
We did a little bit better that time. We still went over 30 seconds.
That's okay.
That's okay. Better, yeah. Don't worry, I'm going to time myself too.
All right, go ahead.
This will be even more interesting.
You should just put a timer up right here.
Here, I'm going to take your phone.
Okay, fine.
Just put a timer up.
All right, ready?
All right, go ahead.
Go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so I'm not going to be as forgiving about this movie as my cohorts here. I thought it was an entertaining film, nowhere near as good as the first Avengers. I think it really suffers from too many characters, too many plot lines. Ultron is an interesting villain, but I don't get why he was evil out of the gate. So it was just a few problems with it. And then they throw in some few plot lines that were just out of left field. I didn't really care for it. You can go see it in theaters if you like. I would have been okay seeing it on rental. Boom! 30 seconds! Oh!
You're really excited.
Oh! But anyway.
I'd offer you a cookie, but you don't eat cookies. Congratulations.
That's right.
You get nothing and you'll like it.
So thank you, Mr. Wilhelm. We're now going to get into the spoilers version of part of our review. So, so now let's actually dive into it. Now that we're not going to time each other, or at least I'm not going to time you guys anymore. Well, maybe. We'll see. Let's just get into the basis of it. I think a few things that we agreed on in terms of what we didn't like. There was the story with Natasha and Bruce, the love story that Black Widow and the Hulk
like we all
kind of comes out left
yeah
field
we all saw it together, and even like you were sitting next to me and shaking your head and huffing and puffing, but I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, I see it too. It's pretty. It was
just the fact that the matter was it wasn't implied in any of the previous films, and especially in the first Avengers movie, it was heavily implied that there was something between Hawkeye and Black Widow. And the reason we all felt that way was because, well,
they had a history.
Well, right, they had a history, and we had no explanation about Hawkeye's current situation or Black Widow's.
Yeah.
So, they just randomly throw out there, oh, by the way, Hawkeye has a wife and a kid and kids.
But
and
I think,
it's like,
well, that
so
was
that
good
just basically gets thrown out the window in replacement for this.
But the thing was, like, for Hawkeye, that was good character development.
You brought up Ultron. Let's get a little bit more into the main villain. I think we all kind of agree. We all kind of liked Ultron, but Casa, why don't you start off? Just tell us what what your thoughts about Ultron himself were. I mean, you said you liked him more than Loki, and I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, James Spader just like knocked it out of the park with his portrayal. I mean, just his voice in itself, and anyone who's familiar with James Spader just knows he basically played himself as Ultron. I mean, he just came across as just really dark, and because I don't know, like, I like Loki, but I couldn't take him nearly as seriously as I did with Ultron. I mean, Ultron just he was just, I don't know what the word is.
Well, and Ultron, I think, had a more defined purpose.
Yes,
than Loki.
That too, because Loki was just kind of like, I want to rule. I want to be, his whole thing was just power, which is what every villain really, like, any, well, at least copycat villain. It's just like, oh, I want power. I want to rule. Blah blah blah.
Well, Loki's a spoiled brat.
Right.
He's a spoiled brat, and then and it's kind of like you saw him from like Thor, and you're like, spoiled brat, and then he comes in and you're like, he's still a spoiled brat, but he's got that charisma about him that you're just like, okay, because I like Loki. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Loki.
And whereas with Ultron, his whole thing was like, he's trying to improve humanity, but then eventually it's just like the extinction of humanity, which I think we kind of discussed this beforehand, that like Ultron kind of like out of nowhere. It's like, I think I saw a meme online that said something like, Ultron spent all of like 30 seconds on the internet and realized how horrible humanity was.
Done.
Well, and see, that's the thing. Like, that was my immediate problem with him, because on paper I agree with almost everything you said. James Spader did a great job. I have a feeling he improvised some lines. Some lines like when Hulk jumped after him in the spaceship, and you just hear him go off screen like, "Oh, for God's sake!"
That was still like one of my favorite
Spader
scenes,
and not Ultron. I agree. So I enjoyed his sense of humor, but that was my problem. Was that right out of the gate, he suddenly decides to have a completely different philosophy than the people who had even created him. Now, like what you said, like he comes to life. He basically searches the internet, sees how bad humanity is. Now, I thought that was kind of interesting.
He downloaded Tony Stark's computer system.
Well, and that's why I thought it was kind of interesting if he was going to make a comment like of how the Avengers were the problem that humanity had, because I've talked about it with you a few times where the Avengers are really the cause of all their own problems.
Yeah.
I mean, every problem the Avengers solved, they brought on. So that would be cool if Ultron had pointed that out to have flipped it on them, but that's never really made clear.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, every superhero is essentially the cause of all of their own problems.
And that's fine, but how often is it actually pointed out to you in that superhero movie? You see what I mean? Sometimes.
They even say that Ultron himself is kind of like a walking criticism of Marvel's movies.
Well, and that's cool, but the problem is it happens too suddenly.
Yeah,
It
that
happens
was
way
my
too
thing.
sudden.
Yeah, that's another plot.
Like they should have gone into a battle with Ultron on their side, and then he sees as a result of that battle that this was the Avengers bringing on their own problems, and then flipped on them. Instead of being
that was,
right out of the gate. Oh,
yeah.
I already have these lofty ideals that contradict yours.
Like we had discussed a little bit that was one of my things where it was so sudden, and then he like took over one of the robot bodies that Tony Stark has lying around, his little like bots that they just go off and help people. But it was just like he was downloaded and straight away is like, I'm gonna destroy everybody.
Well, initially it was
That's
just
it.
to get rid of the Avengers. Like that was his initial thing. It wasn't to wipe out humanity, but then
Eventually turned, because it seemed like he was like starting to move all over the place, so it just seemed like eventually he kind of evolved into, I'm just going to get rid of humanity because I need to make it better, but we got to get rid of it first and let it rebuild up. But if you get rid of everybody, how is everybody going to come back and build up? So it was, but that's the thing of like a crazy villain, like they have this great plan, but then if you really think about it, you're like, this is a horrible plan because you have nothing afterwards.
Right, well, and that kind of leads into one of my other problems with it was what set off the whole problem to begin with was Scarlet Witch giving that vision to Tony Stark. First of all, I didn't like the fact that we never really learned what the extent of Scarlet Witch's power is.
Well,
like we kind of learned
it's
like a little bit.
Telekinesis, right? And mind control.
Right, but
right?
why does she determine? Oh, these people are going to look into their past to find out what horrifies them.
But
Thor's going to get a
it was
vision
nightmares.
of the future.
Well, it was weird. Well, it was nightmares, but with Tony Stark, he saw his fear, he saw a nightmare, which was like his true fear that all of his friends die because of him, and he's like the only one to live.
And also, you remember, he looked up and he saw the
portal from the Tesseract.
What are they called?
Portal.
The Jachari or something?
Yeah.
He looked up and he saw all of them, and you saw him freaking out, and then he looked down and he saw like all the bodies of the Avengers.
And that was kind of like a carryover from Iron Man 3 because he kind of sort of
he was having nightmares.
Because that whatchamacallit, like kind of like a post-traumatic stress.
PTSD.
Right, from that moment, and but then Black Widow. Her nightmare is of her past though, because she's obviously
which I thought was really good for her because we don't know, like we were talking before about her, we didn't know what her thing was, so I thought that was really cool and made people, at least for me, I'd be like, I want to know more about this.
Right, exactly, because we've even because in the first Avengers movie, she's like trying to get the red off of her ledger, like that was her thing, and we're like, so what's in her past? We know she's like a trained assassin or whatever,
but that never even comes up once during this movie, though.
And that's
other
than her nightmares.
But it's like it's kind of weird because it's like in a way, because it seems like she's trying to leave her past behind, like she's trying to like restart her life and make up for whatever bad she may have done, but then she's at this point now, which I'm not, by no means am I justifying the Hulk Black Widow. Like, again, I agree, it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
But it's like her just wanting to escape and run away.
Makes sense.
It makes sense. But with Hulk, that didn't make sense.
No.
Right.
But her just wanting to run away and just even just stop being an Avenger was just dumb.
Could they run? Did they want to run away? I couldn't tell because they only ended 3 scenes the exact same way.
And then
running away together.
We should run away together. Cut. We should run away together. Cut.
So technically, even though Black Widow's her fears was of her past, Thor, who we haven't really talked about yet, sees the future.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Didn't make sense. Is
he
that
went
why
to,
does he see the future?
And
he doesn't even seem that. And if it's all about showing people what they fear, he didn't fear anything.
Well, the thing was,
he saw something that made him curious. That's not fear.
Well, the thing was, for the first thing we saw, like the first flashback or nightmare for Thor, because there's technically 2, because it was when he went into that jacuzzi or whatever. But
which made no sense.
and I had to like look into it and ask somebody like what his like nightmare was, because it looked like he just went to an orgy party with like everybody, and then Himendall was there. That's his name, Idris Elba's character.
Yeah.
Yes.
But somebody told me he went to hell, or the version of Valhalla or the Norse hell, and all those people were there and stuff. So I don't know what. I forget, like, wasn't like his issue was like he was afraid like he would hurt everybody with his powers would go out of control, like with the lightning and stuff. Yeah, and he's like, you're killing something like it was almost like.
But it's virtually
Tony, yeah.
right.
It was almost like
the
Tony
exact
Stark.
same vision.
He's afraid that like he might
Right.
like he might hurt people, and so I was like, okay. But then I forget what it was that then he's like, I need to check into some stuff, and then he went on his little like mission to find the springs.
He
With
finds the
doctor, the
professor, and
But
there's
again,
nothing in
that
between.
whole scene is just
Right.
random.
When once they get their butts beat from Ultron the first time, and they had to go away. So they went to Hawkeye's farm to meet his family. Surprise. And then Thor goes, I got to go back because that thing freaked me out. I got to check on stuff. And then supposedly, next time we see Thor, I'm thinking we're going to see him in Asgard.
Well,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Instead, he's in like London, and then goes and meets the professor guy, which I can't remember what his name is. But he's been in all of the he's been in all the Thor movies, and he was in Avengers.
Right,
And then they go take a car ride,
And then magic pool.
there's a magic pool, which I'm not in a cave, and then
which-
he
and
How
Never
they, and how they
explained.
even knew where it was, and then they
how
had
did-
whatever
No.
was in
Yeah.
that box.
and then there was a box. You're right.
How they know what it was? How does Thor just have this implicit knowledge of it, and he just knows? Oh, if I just go in this water,
And then
I'll see what I want.
he like took his clothes off, and we didn't
Yeah.
even see that. So
When-
there's like.
And also why?
just
I
got
think
in.
you're viewing that from the female perspective there. I think we were okay
Listen,
with
there
that.
was a lot of scenes missing from Thor.
I do have to say, its sense of humor really,
I thought it was going to be
helped get
darker
you
than
through
it was, but it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Right, no, it
actually.
basically kept the exact same tone as
They
the
just
first
showed a
movie.
lot of dark
But
things on the trailer.
I loved the conversation that they had, like, at the party. Like,
Yeah.
early in the movie. I loved all that. I thought that was a great
yeah.
example of the Avengers, like, actually interacting and not, like, while fighting.
When
You
the
know,
Avengers
and-
like all the interaction with the Avengers is
Yeah.
fine, like the fighting
Oh, yeah, I
together,
agree.
and then or separately, or like just the interaction
sleep.
with them.
Go to
They're-
sleep.
Yeah,
Go to
Well,
sleep.
yeah, the whole Hulkbuster
sorry.
and Hulk
I'm
thing.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was like an awesome like fight and everything. But I love
I
the
remember
Hulk.
before I saw the first Avengers movie, I said Robert Downey Jr. is going to be the best thing about that movie. And I still think that's the case, because I still think Robert Downey Jr.'s humor in that movie really sold it.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I think that was also the case here. His humor, but everybody else's humor seemed to also just
yeah.
go along with it.
The
So,
whole
yeah.
Thor and the hammer, like that was just like you
Oh,
see
that
a
was
little
great.
bit, but that was like really like it was a good build up because you see a little bit of it at the beginning with everybody
Right.
trying to lift the hammer and he couldn't do it, and then just Vision's like you're gonna need this,
Yeah.
and then walks off, and
And then
everybody
Thor
has
doesn't
that
know what to
moment,
say.
yeah, and he's like, we need to go and let's not talk about this.
Yeah.
But he was that whole thing was like it's a combination of like Ultron and then Tony Stark and that Asian lady that makes the body for the android body for
Oh,
Ultron,
yeah,
and then
that's right.
but then like Thor comes in and just like zaps them and puts the stone on, and then the guy like is like, I like what you're wearing. I'm gonna put, because you see him, he looks at Thor when he's like naked, and then he just like puts the cape on and like so you're like
Yeah.
it's like okay, you're like his inspiration / kind of his father at the same time. It was kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Like I said, I think it had its moments, but it just, for me, it wasn't as impactful as the first Avengers, because the first Avengers felt like we had never seen something like this.
'Cause it was a big- it was like years of
balanced the
build-up.
characters
Yeah.
so well in that one. This one felt more scrambled. It felt like they were trying to set up more stories for the future sequels, which I think
And-
kind of derailed this
right,
movie.
and that's the
this movie
thing.
feels like a sequel filler. Like
Right.
it feels
It
like a
is.
filler. This is a holdover until Civil War and Avengers:
I mean,
Infinity War.
really the only because the first Avengers as a movie can stand on its own.
Yes. Yes,
Like it really the only connection at all with that movie was the fact that, of course, Thor takes Loki and Loki's locked up, and that carries over into
Thor
in the dark world.
Yeah,
Right.
Thor
And
2.
really that's the only real link right there. otherwise the movie stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Avengers 2, it did spend a lot of time like throwing stuff in, like, here's a hint at this movie.
We're gonna stay in the Marvel universe. Speaking of Civil War, just
talk about all the
recently
other
it's been announced the whole cast of Civil War, basically.
so far.
So far. That
Yeah,
we know
I feel
so
like
far.
there's gonna be more.
But this is basically new information. We know basically what we could have assumed was going to happen from the end of Winter Soldier and the end of this movie. It's been confirmed that Ant-Man's going to be part of Civil War.
Yes.
That was a kind of surprising.
That was a little surprise. We know, even though he still hasn't been cast, we know that Spider-Man is going to be a part of Civil War.
Yeah.
That
We
hasn't
just
been
don't know who
cast
it
yet.
is,
But
yeah.
we know that one's going to be in it. Basically, the only two that aren't in it are Thor and Hulk.
Which makes sense
Because
to me.
Hulk is off in nowhere land, maybe
He's in
Planet
Tahiti,
Hulk.
maybe planet. I was hoping he just went to space.
Yeah.
He's probably in Tahiti on an island somewhere.
I just
Probably.
hope
I would
to God they
imagine
don't
so.
go back to the whole thing where he's like in the middle of like a jungle somewhere, just trying to keep himself.
I hope
hidden
he's
from
actually
that.
just on a beach,
And
relaxed.
then
Yeah.
Thor's going to be up in CG-filled Asgard doing
Yeah,
something
he's got his own.
CG-filled
Plus,
adventure
if you think
related.
about it, Thor has nothing to do with Civil War because the whole thing is like being a registration act for superheroes. Thor doesn't have a dual identity.
He's a god.
He's
Right.
Thor. That's his
outside
name.
of the realm,
He'd be like,
right.
people already know who I am.
Earlier today, it's basically the same idea as in the Transformers movies, where they tried to do the exact same thing. Was, now that you're on Earth, you look at what you've caused, because we basically have a brief synopsis of what Civil War is about. Like,
Yeah, the superhero
Avengers caused
registration
some collateral damage.
More or less also
And-
an X-Men. Didn't they do some sort of mutant registration?
To a degree.
It's a
Yes.
superhero registration
Yes.
act, and I believe Tony Stark's on the one where you should register because he's feeling sorry. Well, because he has weapons of mass destruction, he should
Yeah.
feel sorry
Right.
about
Well, what
and
you-
and then Captain America's like, no, you should have the right to do what you want.
This is
yeah.
America.
he's
That's
like,
Captain America.
And if I don't want to give my name, even though everybody knows who Captain America is,
So-
I shouldn't have to.
But it also, isn't it like the whole thing that like the government gets to decide when the Avengers get to act? Like, isn't that a part of it as well?
I haven't.
Probably.
I just know it's just like giving up your identity. Like everybody has to know who you are and all this stuff. And they're in this their government, and you see like when you look at Captain America 2 with like Shield and stuff, it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. You're like,
which is like the
doesn't trust 'em.
Yeah, but it's like every superhero film and the Transformers films. Technically, these government entities are correct. You know how like in X-Men, it's
Yeah.
portrayed as, you're being biased against our type of people, and it's supposed to be related to like homosexuality among how
yeah.
like they're a part of society that just isn't always accepted by
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
else. But like in terms of X-Men, you have people who can do these crazy things. Magneto can lift up a whole giant baseball stadium and move it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Like, do you think the government would have reacted in any other way? Like this just seems another thing that the government is almost going to look as if they're evil for doing this, but they're completely
But at
correct.
the same time, though, you can't help but feel like an attempt like that to try and control someone with that type of ability is kind of futile. It's like you just have to hope that whoever this person is like, oh, okay,
well, that's why you have
but-
that's why you have superheroes and you have supervillains,
Right.
because the superheroes are there to kick the supervillains. But their whole thing was, I think it, and also it does involve. I know it does involve villains too, and I don't think we have gotten yet. That's why I don't think they've released all of the cast lists yet,
Right.
other than the heroes. We know Captain America, we know Iron Man, we know Black Widow, we know Hawkeye. We know
Falcon,
War Machine, Scarlet Witch.
Witch.
We do get Vision. And then we will
Black
get Spider-Man. We will get Black
Panther.
Panther. And then Martin
Nick
Freeman.
Fury. And Martin
My-
Freeman. Who
I'm-
does Martin Freeman
we-
play?
They
have
don't
no
know yet.
idea.
It'll
Like,
probably,
yeah, I'm
I don't
curious
think he's.
too.
I don't think he's gonna play a superhero.
No,
I think he's
I
gonna
know.
play like a senator or
or maybe
something.
a government.
I had to laugh when I heard that he was joining, because it's like wherever Benedict Cumberbatch goes, Martin Freeman
Well, I
follows,
don't-
and wherever
yeah.
Martin Freeman goes, Benedict Cumberbatch follows.
Well, the thing is like I don't even know if I mean I don't even know
Hobbit
if they'll.
looking
I don't
good.
know if they'll put Doctor Strange in there because his movie's not coming out yet, so we don't have his origin story. So
Right.
No.
Well, there's always
yeah,
the
yeah.
chance that they could cross paths in the
yeah,
universe.
I mean we need
you know.
we need Doctor Strange for the Avengers 3 because I know his thing is kind of pretty big in there
Right.
too.
See,
so.
I feel like this is feeling less like Captain America, and this should really just be named Avengers 2.5.
My whole thing is that, like in the synopsis that they released, they talked about obviously there's going to be a rift between the Avengers. They're going to be fighting while also the presence of a new villain. Whoever
Which is
that
just making this
right,
way more
which is
complicated.
which is what I was afraid of. Like if they put like all their focus on just the Avengers fighting amongst themselves, and you have like this huge all-out fight between them, then that would have made for a good enough movie.
Well-
but now you have to throw in a villain.
Yeah, but we don't. They said villain.
Or
But
evil,
how do
or
we know that the villain isn't? It's not really a villain, but it's somebody that a villain is on there that we'll know that from a movie. But he's because the thing I think with Civil War was like villains started choosing sides too because it's a
Right.
big thing because they have powers or whatever and they're doing it, and that's really why probably the
Now my
that it could
assumption
just
here is
be,
I don't
yeah.
mean to cut you off, Mike.
No,
My
go ahead.
assumption here is that whoever this villain is going to end up killing Captain America because I'm thinking that because I mean even Chris Evans has hinted that Civil War could very well be his last Captain America movie.
last Captain America movie.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Or his last time playing Captain America. Like we don't know the extent of his contract. Well, I'm sure he is going to be in Infinity Wars at some point in time.
Yeah, like my prediction was that Captain America will die at the end of Captain America 3, and that he won't come. He'll come back because it's Captain America.
But it has to be in part 2. He cannot come back in part 1.
I think he's not gonna. If he does come back, it'll be like the teaser. He will be the teaser at the end of Avengers.
Yeah, maybe. Like,
yeah.
and I fully expect
I
Bucky
hope.
to take the mantle.
I actually want him to die. I mean, and not like I hate him. I want him to. I want Marvel to go there.
Because
Marvel-
at least there would be some hint that death matters in this universe, and that's what ticks me off. Is that we're in the comic book mode of death does not matter. If this character dies, doesn't matter.
Because I
Few
want-
issues
I
later,
want that-
we're gonna find
Yeah.
out that was a clone
I want
of the actual
I want
person.
that scene which you saw with Tony Stark. I feel
Yeah.
like that scene with Captain America dying and telling him, you know what, I forget what he said, but like with the broken shield and stuff. I think that scene is going to reflect Captain America 3. I think that's what's going to haunt Tony Stark because that's going to stop and be like, oh my God,
But
like
I'm
what
just-
am I doing? I killed my friend, or I feel bad about
I'm
it.
just hoping that they don't play off the whole cliches. Like, okay, so the government has like this really stern stance. Okay, it's like everyone has to register. Like, we want to have control over, you know, superhumans and anyone like Iron Man that has like, you know, super high tech or whatever. And then all of a sudden they like change their minds at the end because after the Avengers save the world again, they're like, oh well, you know what? On second thought, maybe there's enough destruction out of Civil War that it reinforces the government to like stick to their guns. But I don't know. Like there's, that's where I'm just worried. 'cause,
Well,
like,
the Spider-Man's like I know Spider-Man has a really, really important part in Civil War because
Right.
his thing is he's being like pulled from both sides. Like Tony Stark wants him on his side, and the Captain America wants on his side. And the whole big deal is they have to reveal their identity thing, and it is a big deal, like for you to reveal your identity because all of your supervillains, all your thing, they're gonna know who you are, and they're gonna come after your family.
And I don't think
they're gonna come after you.
And I don't think Spider-Man reveals his because the whole idea is like, you know, he's a high school student. Like his world would get flipped. It's just completely
See,
changed.
that's why this cast list has me. I was excited for Civil War, and to a degree I still am, but that's kind of been tapered now by seeing this because now we're just running into so many characters. There's so many people I have to care about in this movie. I'm
I
like,
will say,
how are you going to set up Spider-Man
with-
appropriately, you know, while still throwing
Well,
in
see, there's
Ant-Man?
no setup required.
There's no setup.
No, there
required
is
for Spider-Man.
to set up his introduction into this universe.
I just think
He's
for
already
him,
Spider-Man.
Well, right,
Okay,
well,
that's
right,
fine,
right.
but you still have
I'm
to
thinking
find his
what's
place.
going to happen is because with Peter, I think they're going to emphasize that even though he's still in high school, he still has like this. Look, because he becomes a photojournalist. You know that's what he like. You know,
That's
his
his side job, yeah.
Right.
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm almost saying like him as as being a high school student, like he's like developing that passion for photography, and maybe he sees this thing on the news, great opportunity to get some pictures of the action of Iron Man and Captain
Jameson's
America.
like, Parker!
So let's go from the optimistic world of Marvel to the dark and gritty, no fun DC.
Bat versus Supes.
Batman, when we went to see Avengers, and of course, as everybody saw a few weeks ago, the Batman vs Superman trailer was released to the public. Let's have our quick mention about it. I know I sound like the negative Nancy in this episode.
You're such a negative Nancy.
I know. I'm like Mr. Negativity right here. I watched that trailer and I was just like, this looks boring.
I still have my reservations about it.
I didn't like Man of Steel.
I liked Man of Steel.
I
didn't mind it.
Right.
For me, just as what Spider-Man is to you, is what Batman is for me.
Yeah,
like I really like Batman.
Yeah.
I am not going to judge the casting decision of Ben Affleck. I think that he has potential to do a good job, even though I feel like he might be better at being Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, that's what I feel. Is like I can see him as Bruce Wayne, but it depends on when he. Like I think he can. Like when I saw the pictures of him as Batman, I was like, okay, that's Batman. I get it.
Right.
I don't see Ben Affleck because I was afraid like you could still see him, but I just see Batman. But I don't. We haven't really seen him as Batman. But,
Not really.
You know, like
because the only line said was in like that. Yeah, do you bleed? You will.
And I was just like, okay. And I was, but this might be more of like Bruce Wayne heavy, and then we see clips of Batman, and then they're fighting.
But I think
Christian Bale's voice.
Well, I think that if DC wants people to be happy with. I mean, when you're calling it Batman vs Superman, there is an ample amount of him playing Batman and less of Bruce Wayne.
The suit looks awesome.
The suit, right? And
not the duct tape suit, the mech suit maybe.
I saw the one picture of him in this.
I think that looks terrible.
No, I just think I like the black and gray.
The black and gray. If you want to talk about how the actual bat symbol or bat logo looks,
that's
symbol.
I don't like the bat symbol.
Yeah,
it's Frank Miller's bat symbol.
But
and that's fine. But in that picture, it looks like a Halloween costume.
But I do like
a badly put together Halloween costume.
I do like though that they're going back to the traditional black and gray. Like that's
we've never seen it on.
But you can do it in a different way though. You don't have to perfectly emulate the comics. There's a reason why Wolverine hasn't worn his yellow and blue in the X-Men.
Right. And whereas, like I said, and obviously with this new DC universe, even though like Batman, that was his own self-contained thing. He did not interact with anyone else outside of the Batman universe. Whereas with this one, they're going for a definitely more comic book, graphic novel.
It's going to be
feel.
that.
And I think that's why, like, that's the deviation. Like, that's why you kind of have to. Honestly, you have to treat them all separately and judge them based on their own things, not to say, this is what they did in Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, and this is what they did.
Because they keep on reiterating, this is going to be a new universe. This is their Justice League universe, which I have no faith in whatsoever. Because I don't. I think they're totally jumping off.
They're rushing to it.
It's funny. We complain that Marvel's taking too long, and now we're saying that DC's going too fast.
Well, I think just DC just was like, Marvel's doing this, and
we're behind.
It's like we have the rights to Batman and Superman, and we talked about it years ago about like doing a Batman versus Superman movie. Let's do this now.
When did Avengers come out? In 2012?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's been 3 years, and DC is just starting up their build up to their
because I think they said we're gonna like probably somebody like said like, hey, are you gonna have a cinematic universe about this Marvel thing? Like, yes.
And
then they're like, somebody start writing a script. We got to get Superman in there and Batman.
I think what happened there was that obviously DC was riding the Dark Knight trilogy train. Like they were taking that thing all the way to the bank.
Because that was the top.
Christopher Nolan was their horse, and they were just riding him off into the sunset.
Like, we need Superman out here, so can you help us?
After Dark Knight Rises, because Dark Knight Rises was 2011?
I think
sure.
so.
2011?
Yeah.
So then that just finished, and then they get followed, then Avengers comes out.
Right.
And Avengers proves that you can do the superhero team up and be successful. Because everyone, again, I think there was that early concern that you couldn't have all of these heroes in one movie and find that balance to make it work. And they did. They made it work. I mean, no matter what, Avengers was going to be a huge success at the box office.
Because they've been building up to it.
Right. But it was a matter of whether or not it was going to be a good film. And it was. And so now DC sees that, like, oh my gosh, so this is doable. So So it is possible to do the superhero team up
Right.
and make a well-balanced story. So, of course, then they kick it off with Man of Steel because, like, we can't do Batman yet.
Well, if you remember, I don't know if you remembered, a couple years ago, they were going to just do a Justice League movie where they were going to, like, recast with the whole, like, Christian Bale wasn't going to be in it, but they cast, like, the Armie Hammer, like, from Social Network to be, like, I think, Batman and all these other people, and it didn't go through because it sounded horrible either way, because it was all, like young people that just, weren't really that great actors, and it got thrown to the ground. And now they're like, we're going to bring that back. But we're going to do what Marvel did, but we're going to be like, all right, let's do Superman. And then like, okay, and then now we got Superman, so now we got to go and hurry up and do Batman. But Christopher Nolan's like, not doing another Batman. And Christian Bale's like, done.
Well, I think if under the right circumstances, Bale would have probably come back, but then that would have established a connection with Nolan's Batman universe.
If they had known ahead of time, they probably could have. If they knew that they were going to do it, they could have easily connected, Clark Kent and Superman into that. Even just mention it, because people were thinking like maybe Clark Kent was going to show up. But then it kind of breaks that
world of kind of like realism that.
that well, and that's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm trying to get to a little bit is the fact that they're trying to do what Marvel did, but they're trying to do it in a dark and gritty and rushed, but also dark and gritty. Where like the Avengers was good because it was funny, it was bright, optimistic. Yeah. The only real spoken line from Batman in the trailer is, "Do you bleed? You will."
Well, this is coming from the guy that has really big issues since he saw his parents murdered in front of him years ago.
Right, but I'm saying, look at the lack of life and depression and darkness.
But the thing is, that's Batman
against the optimism and humor of the Avengers.
Yeah,
right.
So that's what I'm saying.
The Avengers works because of its sense of humor. That's why I feel like DC's going to run themselves into the ground this way, is because they're going to try to make everything serious, dark, and gritty and realistic.
Well, yeah.
And it's not going to work. Because it's not going to work.
Well, if they take...
They're going off a comic that's dark and gritty.
Well, right. Well, because Superman, mostly because, like, you look at Batman. Batman is almost as dark as they get. Obviously, you can, like, talk about, like, the Punisher and stuff like that. But Batman, is inherently, like, a darker comic compared to...
He's like the new Daredevil. Or the Daredevil's the new Batman. Let's go like with that because Batman's been around.
And right. And Superman, like we were talking about, like how Superman, like the
bright
movie
colors.
was just like, well, Superman's supposed to like be bright colors, red, white, blue,
but it was saturated.
But now what they're doing is, like I said, since with this Batman, like this is Frank Miller's Batman. Frank Miller is almost as dark and gritty as you get when it comes to comic book creators. And again, if you're going with that adaptation, you've got to commit to it because if you kind of take like that more colorful, humorous with a little bit of dark and edginess or whatever, it's just not going to work.
I don't think it's going to work anyway.
You can't joke. There's no really jokey things unless you bring in the Joker is the joke of Batman, but dark and sick and twisted.
I just don't believe it's going to work anyway. I mean, I don't have very high expectations for Batman vs Superman. First of all, because of Man of Steel. Secondly, I don't know why Warner Brothers is completely dedicated to Zack Snyder as being like they think he's their Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I don't have too much.
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't mind.
I didn't mind. Man of Steel that says, we can ride this guy all the way to the bank. I haven't seen that.
Visually, he can grab like 300 was another. Zack Snyder was another adaptation of a Frank Miller comic, and that's like from panel to panel, straight up.
But
so was Watchmen too. Now people had problems with Watchmen. That is a big comic to take over, and he did kind of fuck up the ending because I read Watchmen and I was just like, it can go over your head because there's a lot of philosophical stuff going on with it, and it's very dark and gritty, like you're saying, which that's what Watchmen was. But he captured the visuals of it, like I said, from panel to panel, so he can do that. And
he needs the writing behind him. He needs a strong group of writers and producers behind him.
And I think he's touching the writing. And that's the issue. Is he's a good art designer, and he can film action. He can do action, but don't touch the script. Get somebody that's a really good script writer. Touch that. get Josh Whedon to write the script, and then you just put that in. You know, it's just like whatever.
I'm basing everything that I think this movie, that I'm expecting this movie to be, off of Man of Steel, and because that's what it is.
Oh,
it's the sequel to Man of Steel.
Yeah, which
so
kind of sucks. They should have just given another Superman movie.
It's all going to be saturated. It's all going to be, you know, like it's going to be like.
I
didn't like the production style of Man of Steel. Everything felt saturated. Everything felt dark. Unnecessarily dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Superman is not a dark and brooding superhero.
He's
he just
bright,
isn't.
colorful.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is why it was such a mismatch, because it doesn't make sense. And now you have a hero who's, you know, one, not dark and broody, who's going to be in a fight to the death with Batman,
who is supposed to be dark and brooding, and it's supposed to be a clash. You got to have a bright guy with this dark guy, and I understand that.
But that doesn't come through. Instead,
it's both dark.
This dark gritty guy versus this dark gritty guy. That's
because
the
they
issue.
set up a Man.
Because that's how it's been set up.
And I understand that.
Yeah, that's the issue.
And I totally get that. I totally get that.
They're going wrong with the tone.
Especially
because we all know that they're just going to end up fighting a more common enemy anyway. That they're going to fight each other for like maybe like a 20 minutes in total in the whole movie, and then at the very end it's like, oh, we gotta beat this guy instead. Okay, we're good buddies now.
Because the one element we have not discussed yet is Lex Luthor. In this, you know, Jesse Eisenberg is Lex Luthor.
That is the only interest I have in this movie.
See, we're like complete opposites with like, you're just like, I'm not, like, we both can agree I'm not too excited with that, and Jesse Eisenberg.
Right, so the way I'm envisioning
I
it,
like Jesse Eisenberg.
the way I'm envisioning it, Metropolis has been destroyed, like parts of it have been just completely obliterated, and obviously there's a huge like you know, there are two sides basically saying, you know, yay Superman, thank you for being our savior, blah blah blah, and then
real estate has been just damaged.
Right, and then there's the other side where we saw the statues like false god or whatever, people that are against Superman.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Lex Luthor, of course, is going to play up as being like, you know, the young entrepreneur, billionaire that's going to help rebuild Metropolis, that enlists the help of Bruce Wayne to help rebuild Metropolis.
And Bruce Wayne's going to be like,
Lex,
he's an asshole.
But why does Bruce Wayne leave Gotham to help out another random city?
Because he has money and he's a philanthropist.
Right.
Why wouldn't he? Because, and it could be, too, that, like, Lex Luthor, and Luthor Corp, and Wayne Enterprises probably might have something together, so he asked.
And let's also keep in mind, Wilhelm, do your thing. Spoiler. That in The Dark Knight Returns, Batman's been forced into retirement. The government essentially tells Batman, you gotta go away. You know,
you're scaring people.
Right, and I have a funny feeling that it is...
He's coming out of retirement.
Well, he goes... meets he meets Lex Luthor. They go over a plan, but then they both kind of agree that Superman is more destructive than he is helpful for Metropolis. I think Bruce Wayne initially has that, you know, opinion of Superman, that he is more...
He's a villain.
Right. Well, that not necessarily that he's a villain, but he's just has no control.
He's a danger.
He's dangerous,
a danger.
right.
He could hurt. Like, he could destroy the Earth.
And so then I think that, you know, I think in that scene in the trailer where you see, you know him looking at the bat suit, I think that's his first time looking at it and saying, I'm putting this damn thing back on. I'm getting back out there, and I'm going to make a difference in the world and do what Superman. Try and fix what Superman's done, and of course there's gonna be a clash of ideology.
And then Wonder Woman's gonna stand on the side and be like, "Listen, guys, you're from Earth. That guy's an alien.
Rope up both of them, pull them off to the side.
I'm from another world and kind of a goddess, and I have the strength of Superman, so I can hurt you, Batman. I have this whip, and I'm dressed in gladiatorial armor. So stop it." And she just smacks you both on the...
Before we end this episode, and we're going to end every episode with this, we're going to have a small section of the episode called Movie Rant. So basically one of us gets 1 minute, and exactly 1 minute, we will time it, to just rant about a movie. Okay. A movie or something about films that might be on our minds.
Okay.
And so, you know, if it's okay, I'd like to take the opportunity to rant.
I think I have an idea of where this is going.
I think you all have, but here, feel
should
free
we
to time me.
Should we just leave?
If the discussion at this point hasn't been any sort of indication about what this rant might be about.
All right, so go ahead. Let's get it started. Let me know.
And actually, no, we'll do timer. We'll do.
Well, no, just do the
No.
What?
No,
You're
1
making
minute.
this complicated.
1 minute. It'll count down from 1 minute.
All right, fine.
Ready? Go.
I believe that the connected universe of Marvel is slowly destroying superhero films. In the same way that people are frustrated by the final book of a series being made into 2, I'm getting frustrated with connected movies, superheroes that we have to track through multiple films, storylines we have to track through multiple films that we're all going to lose. I miss the days of the standalone superhero film. I miss when the only 2 characters on screen that I cared about was Spider-Man and Doc Ock, or Dark Knight, and it's not been a minute yet. Dark Knight and the Joker, okay? And now this is spreading to beyond just comics. We have the Marvel, we have the DC. Now Transformers has talked about a cinematic universe, and now so there is even talks of Ghostbusters in a cinematic universe. Exactly. Thank you very much. I miss those days. I believe Marvel is slowly destroying superhero films. We're all going to be tired of them within the next year or 2.
I think you're already tired of them.
I am. And that is how you do the movie rant. Thank you.
I feel like you need to we need to set you up next to a desk or something, and then just anger behind, something red and flashing, and just going.
That'd be awesome if I just turned into the Hulk during my rant. You know,
probably.
That would actually be kind of ironic considering how much you hate Marvel right now.
I don't hate Marvel. I hate what's happened. I hate that. I feel like the quality of superhero films are degrading. But anyway, we're done for discussion for today. Yes. We are going to talk about many Marvel films in the future. All right.
And next week we'll talk about episode we'll talk about Mad Max.
The next episode we are going to see Mad Max. It's the next big film coming out that I think we're all relatively interested in. So. If you enjoy
I'm neutral. I'm
kind of neutral too, so that's what'll be interesting. You know, I don't really have the history of Mad Max or anything.
I mean, the trailer looked good.
Yeah.
I saw Mad Max Thunderdome with Tina Turner, and I was like, all right.
And Mel Gibson,
So we will see, but that will be our next episode of the podcast. So please feel free to join us, and of course you can. If you do want to join in our conversation, you can tweet. You can tweet at us. Yes, you can tweet at us. You can see it right here. We'll also have it on the screen.
Yep.
You can find us on Twitter at Movie.Cast, DOT-cast. And on Facebook, just search Movie.Cast.
Just be quiet about it.
Also, if you're watching the video podcast, we are going to release a full audio podcast because this went on for a lot longer than what you're watching right now.
That tends to happen.
Yeah.
So yes, we do tend to talk a lot. So please subscribe on our YouTube. Join our Facebook.
Subscribe, comment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Subscribe, comment. I'm going to put that on the screen. That'll look nice.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you guys for joining. It was a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We didn't kill each other after one episode.
Well,
so
because I had Costa on my side. You're over there.
So anyway, thank you all very much for joining. Have a great day. See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.